Steel and Flame, Book 1 of the Guilds of Avlaan series is available on Amazon. If you like fluffy wolf lolly protagonists and Japanese light novels, follow the link below to check it out.
Hello, Leonardo Cornejo here with another video. You might think I'm a little too warm for Mexico, but no, it is cold around here in this season. It's still on the northern hemisphere, so it's cold. It's actually cold today, and I was feeling really cold, so I'm wearing this. But that's not the point for today. I am just explaining why I'm not wearing the usual T-shirt and and cap. It's because it's cold. The point of today is that I'm going to talk about something that I wasn't really planning. I'm going to improvise a bit, but I was inspired by something that happened literally yesterday. At the time of recording this, literally yesterday, I found yet another. I will say it this way: fetishist, claiming that if there is magic, why can't there be someone in a wheelchair? Because there's magic. That's why I'm talking. That's why I'm going to talk about. Because I have noticed these people, they really do fetishize disability. All these disability activists, I will say it that way. Because not all of them are disabled. But all of these disability activists who, oh, I love this new character in a wheelchair because I can relate, because I'm in a wheelchair. Dude, the wheelchair is not you. Your disability is not you. Now, the thing is, I was thinking because they say, oh, why are you so scared of it? No, I'm not scared, I'm bothered, and that's because it's uncreative and narcissistic. I'm thinking, can you actually write someone disabled without a wheelchair? Because that's what I began to think. You might actually want to write a disabled character in a fantasy setting, but why a wheelchair? And you might need an explanation for the disability. For example, if that world has magical medicine, that character might not be disabled by something that magic can fix. For example, let's say you could even say let's start with the idea that this character is disabled, but he's under treatment, magical treatment to rewire his nerves and recover the mobility of his legs, or get the mobility of his legs if he was born disabled. For example, with someone disabled from the legs, because it's the point of contention here. There are other disabilities. There are other disabled characters who are more common. For example, blind characters are really common. Some even characters that have blinded themselves because of a code of honor, because of an oath, because of some sort of curse or contract. Some who are born blind but develop some special ability because of blindness. Blind swordsmen are really common in fantasy. But well, people who can't move from the waist down or from the neck down are really rare, and that's that's where the point of contention starts. And I'm thinking, but you don't need a fucking wheelchair. These people are obsessed with their wheelchairs. They are obsessed with their disabilities. They are obsessed with their situation because they are narcissistic and fetishistic. Because you can have other ways of portraying disability. You can have other ways of portraying this disabled character. Let's say, for example, yeah, the magic can't change the disability, it can't cure it. The character is disabled, it can't move, the character can't move his legs, can't walk. Well, but why a chair? Why a wheelchair? You say, well, it can't recover the mobility with magic. But it can use magic to get that mobility. For example, a harness that does the walking for the character, a levitating orb, maybe a seat, but not a wheelchair, not limited by wheels, but instead a seat with legs, or a harness with legs. For example, there is a character in Black Butler. This manga has a character, specifically the manga, not the anime, and you have been warned it's a spoiler for the manga, but the manga has been around for long enough that fuck you. Seriously, if you think this is about a spoiler, fuck you. Keep crying, because I'm not going to stop, and you have been warned. This character, who is a girl about the same age as Ciel, a lolly character, seriously, there is fan service to count as lolly, who is, while somewhat capable of walking, she has weak legs. She in general is of a rather weak constitution, but she's also good with engineering and all that stuff, and she uses a harness with the spider legs instead. She has this harness which is tied from her waist, and it has legs she uses to walk instead of her own. That kind of character can work. You don't need a character to be normal, and I will say it that way. And I'm someone is like, you're being rude to disabled people, dude. You are not normal. Your situation is not normal. It's not. It's not a normal situation. It's not a desirable situation. You deserve respect. Yes, you absolutely deserve respect. You do not deserve to be denied service just because you can't walk. But your situation is not normal. If it was normal, everyone would be born like that. And if your situation was desirable, you wouldn't be in a wheelchair. Let me put it this way. If your situation of being unable to walk was desirable, the whole species would have it, and you wouldn't be in a wheelchair. You would be like a barnacle. You don't move, you eat, and don't move. But we are humans, and humans walk. So your situation is not really normal, and it's not desirable. Nobody hates you for saying that. We just don't want to be in that situation, and we just think it is unfortunate that you are in that situation, and you need help to overcome that challenge. I know many people who are disabled develop a, how do I say it, a self-esteem issue regarding that. And I know some of them cope with that self-esteem issue by being arrogant or by, how do I say, glorifying and romanticizing their situation. But that's not healthy. And what is healthy is recognizing that you are using aids to move because you can't move. And you are not in a normal situation. And your fortitude comes from overcoming that situation and not from being in it. And if you could have a harness that does the walking for you, and you prefer the wheelchair, you are insane and stupid. Because the wheelchair has less mobility than legs, even mechanical legs that take the role yours can't. So no, it's not an attack on disability. It's an attack on the fetishization and romanticization of wheelchairs. Don't be obsessed with the wheelchair. The wheelchair is not you. The disability is not you. It's a situation you are into. Again, back to the topic. If you want to depict a disabled character in a magical setting or in a cyberpunk setting, that character doesn't need a wheelchair. For example, in many versions of Dr. Charles Xavier, he has a levitating seat. It's not a wheelchair, it's floating. Because that has more mobility than wheels. Don't be obsessed with the wheels. If a character can't walk, but makes a suit of armor that does the walking for him, you don't need that wheelchair, the armor is doing the job! In fact, you could have a character who, for whatever reason, even if it's for birth, is unable to move from the waist down, or from the neck down, but has a suit of armor, which does the moving for him. And he can be a warrior. You can depict someone with disability without being stuck to the wheelchair. And in fact, if you want to get stuck to the wheelchair when technology advances enough to have other means of mobility for you, there's something off with you. Because, as I said, the wheelchair is not you. And someone told me the wheelchair was a part of her body. I'm like, dude, no, the wheelchair is not you. The wheelchair is not you. The wheelchair is a tool you use to overcome a bad situation. The disability is not you. It's a situation you were unfortunate to be into. And I take that into account even in my life. Yes, I can walk. But I could have an injury or an accident that prevents me from walking. Or I could have some health related issue over time, even because of age, that prevents me from walking. And if I have to choose between a walking harness, which I hope is developed by the time that happens, or a wheelchair, I will choose the harness. In fact, in fact, if I was told, yeah, your legs are useless, but if you amputate them and you put this mechanical augmentation, which is something in many fictional settings, both fantasy and cyberpunk, and you can walk again, chop my legs, they are useless! And seriously, why does the disabled character need to be basically a show of the disability and not of overcoming it? Their character doesn't have an arm? Get a mechanical arm! Full Metal Alchemist, for example. Imagine how boring it would be if Edward only had one arm and one leg through the whole series and was in a wheelchair through the whole series. Because he refused to get an automail because his disability is him, according to himself. That would be boring. And he can't walk or fight without his arm and leg, which are mechanical, which are a way to overcome the disability. They are not an erasure of the disability. They are not erasing the disabled people. They are showing a way in which technology in that world made disability less of a problem, in which that world made technology which is better. And it would probably inspire people in real life to develop mechanical limbs to help people who are born disabled, who suffer from a disability because of accident. The idea of sticking to the wheelchair, of sticking to the display of disability, is abusive, if you ask me. Is wanting the person who suffers disability to stay in that condition, even if that condition can be improved drastically. It's keeping them in their place and holding them back. And that's abusive. That's abusive, and that feels like a fetish. And that's cruel. And I know maybe some of you are watching this and you might have a disability. Some of you might be in a wheelchair. Some of you might like an arm, might like a might like a leg, might like an eye. But if you were told we can use technology to give you that eye, to give you that leg, to give you that arm, to make you walk again, would you reject it and prefer the wheelchair? And prefer the partial lack of visibility, and prefer the missing limb? Would you really prefer that situation to have technology fix it and overcome the challenge that it represents? I don't know why some people are like that. I don't know why some people build their identity around something that is a difficulty they are living with. Why do they build their identity around an aid to overcome that difficulty without even accepting others? And why do they want to self-insert that hardly in fantasy and in fiction to force it into it? If a world has magic, enough to create technological leaps, enough to overcome challenges we don't have here, even revive the dead, why limit yourself to a wheelchair? When you can have, you can have devices that make the person walk again. When you can have magic that restores the mobility of that person in some cases. For example, someone said, but what if a curse prevents the magic from healing it? Well, technology. Again, then you can have a harness which does the walking. Or spider legs. A seat or a harness with the spider legs. Or maybe just levitation. Why limit your character to a wheelchair when you have levitation? When you have characters who literally move around, sitting on a flying carpet, why would a character settle for a wheelchair? Why do they want to settle for less when they can have more? Why do they want to settle for limitations when they can overcome them? That's beyond me, seriously. And I'm saying it. I don't think I am attacking disabled people because they said I hated disabled people and shit like that. No. I am saying disability is not a desirable situation even for the disabled. And if you are given the opportunity to improve your quality of life drastically, why reject it? And if in fiction you can create a context in which the quality of life is improved drastically, why forcing the wheelchair? Why needing a wheelchair in a setting where people can literally levitate? I don't even think they will develop one. Sometimes I even wonder if a wheel would be developed in a world where magic is so abundant, people have been levitating for centuries. I think they will skip some steps. I think they will skip some technology if given the chance. Because humans do that. Because if humans don't need a technology, they don't bring it. They don't make it. Because technology is entirely based on functionality. So why limit yourself that much? And for example, there are characters who literally have a magical, mechanical, artificial, not precisely mechanical, artificial limb. It can be made of floating crystals, but it is still an artificial limb. Why will you need a wheelchair when magic can overcome the need of one? Beyond the understanding of our reality. Why do you want the parts of our reality that are inconvenient to us to be part in a world that is not real? And especially when that world that is not real can inspire the creation of new technology. As I said, I am certain there are people out there investigating how to make artificial limbs who were inspired by Full Metal Alchemist. I am certain there are people out there who are thinking of making mechanical aids for those who are disabled, who were inspired by science fiction or fantasy, who saw a walking harness in some movie or video game, and they are inspired by it. And there are examples of technology which was inspired by literally Star Trek. Why settle for less? There was, for example, an episode in Star Trek where one of the Klingon characters got disabled in an accident. And one of the proposed solutions, because he didn't want to be in that state, one of the proposed solutions was an experimental treatment which required a complete replication and transplant of his spine, basically making a copy of his spine with replication technology, and then taking out the spine and rewire everything around the new spine. And it works, and he takes the procedure even though they tell him, dude, this procedure, you could stay disabled or take this procedure, which if doesn't work will kill you. He takes the procedure, and I think I will do the same. And that leaves me thinking, why would you want to keep the wheelchair and not have technology to make such revolutionary medical procedures a possibility? There was this guy, I don't know what happened to him, but there was this story allegedly of a guy who was going to get a complete body transplant. He was disabled from the neck down, and all he needed was a body which didn't need a head. And his head will be cut from his body and placed in the new body and reconnected. I don't know what happened to him, and I don't even know if it was real, but that was the story, that he would get a complete body transplant. Only his head would be his, and the rest of the body would be from another person. And I thought, that will improve his quality of life a lot. Why would you prefer the wheelchair over such an improvement if it is successful? And all that technology is inspired by fiction, so why do you want to force fiction into having the fucking wheelchair? Unless it is a fetish coming from narcissism. That's the only explanation I can think of. These people are fetishistic and narcissistic and obsessed with the wheelchair, obsessed with their disability. They have made their disability part of themselves to the point that it is their entire identity. And I think people need to emphasize it more. Your disability is not you. It's something that happened to you. Your mental disorders are not you. They are something that is happening to you, and I say that as someone who had OCD, well, who has OCD and has learned to overcome it. Your situation is not you, it's something that happened to you. And your wheelchair is not you, it's an aid to overcome that something. Your devices to aid you with your disability, whatever they are, a prosthetic arm, a wheelchair, whatever, they are not you. They are something you use to overcome that disability. Fiction can make new ideas and even inspire new ideas on how to overcome it. So why the wheelchair? Why the fucking wheelchair? That's it for today. Have a good one.